Okay, so have you ever met someone who just seems unbelievably, almost effortlessly lucky? You know exactly the type of person I'm talking about. They always seem to meet the exact right people at the exact right time. They stumble into perfect opportunities, they easily land the absolute dream job, they build successful businesses from scratch, they win competitions, and somehow everything just seems to magically work out for them. Meanwhile, you might know someone else who works just as hard, maybe even harder, right? Yet absolutely nothing seems to go their way. They just hit roadblock after roadblock. It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? It kind of makes you wonder what invisible force is operating behind the scenes.
So, what is actually going on here? Is luck actually real? If you ask 10 different people what luck means, I guarantee you will get 10 entirely different answers. Some people believe it's destiny, just written in the stars. Some believe it's pure coincidence. Others think it's completely random, or that lucky people are simply born with a golden ticket. But is luck an actual tangible force? Or, is there a hidden science behind probability and the human mind that explains why some people just always appear to win? Today, in this explainer, we're going to uncover one of the biggest misconceptions about success, because by the end of our time together, you might just realize that luck isn't nearly as random as you've been led to believe.
Part 1. The math of exposure.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Our very first clue in this whole investigation is how luck, kind of amazingly, often disguises itself as just basic mathematics. Before we even look at human behavior, we have to look at the raw numbers. Take the lottery illusion, for example. Say person 1 buys a lottery ticket every single week. Person 2 never buys one. Years later, that first person finally wins the jackpot. What does everyone around them say? They say, wow, no way, they are so lucky. But were they? Well, yes, obviously they won a game of chance. But think about it. By playing weekly, they created the baseline exposure required for luck to even happen in the first place. Luck often requires exposure. Probability doesn't guarantee success, but it absolutely changes the odds. Because here's the undeniable truth of it all. If you never enter the game, your probability of success remains an absolute mathematical zero, period. And this exact principle applies to almost every single area of your life. If you never introduce yourself to new people, your chances of making a game-changing connection are zero. If you never apply for that dream job because you think, I won't get it, your chances of being hired are literally zero. One application might fail, one conversation might lead absolutely nowhere. But the people who keep increasing the number of meaningful opportunities, they are simply allowing probability to eventually work in their favor.
Part 2. The psychology of perception.
So if the math is that straightforward, right, why do some people still feel completely cursed while others feel so blessed? Well, let's shift our investigation from math to the human brain. The psychologist Richard Wiseman spent decades, literally decades, studying people who consistently describe themselves as lucky versus those who feel unlucky. And what he discovered was honestly shocking. Lucky people weren't experiencing more miracles. They were simply behaving and thinking differently. It all starts with a little trick our brains play on us, known as confirmation bias. This is the natural human tendency to notice evidence that supports our existing beliefs while completely overlooking or just dismissing evidence that contradicts them. Think about it. If someone deeply believes, I am an unlucky person, what happens? Every single time something bad occurs, it just strengthens that belief. They collect it as proof. But when something good happens, they brush it off. They say, oh, that was just a random coincidence. On the flip side, someone who believes opportunities exist everywhere naturally starts scanning the horizon and noticing more of those opportunities.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we call the job loss test. Imagine two people lose their jobs on the exact same day. The first person says, my life is over. I have the absolute worst luck. The second person says, you know what? This might be an opportunity to try something totally new. Both of these people experience the exact same negative, completely random event, but their interpretation drastically alters their future reality. One becomes trapped in this cycle of defeat while the other remains totally open to what's next. Mindset doesn't magically change reality, but it does dictate your response to reality. And your response, that changes your outcome.
So the fundamental difference here between the chronically lucky and the chronically unlucky, it isn't magic. It's attention. Unlucky people often focus so narrowly on what they expect to find, the obstacles, the failures, the rejections, that they completely miss the unexpected opportunities sitting right in front of them. Lucky people remain open. Because they believe good things can happen, their attention is widened, and that allows them to spot the hidden doors that everyone else just walks right past.
Part 3. The architecture of opportunity.
Which brings us to the next fascinating layer of our explainer. It's not just about how you think, it's about what you actively do to construct your own good fortune through your everyday behaviors. Look at the highly specific actions that consistently lucky people take. They talk to strangers, way more often. They explore unfamiliar places. They remain wildly curious about the world. And absolutely crucially, They take reasonable risks. They're the ones who apply for the job even if they know they might face rejection. They're the ones who start the business despite the overwhelming uncertainty. Every single one of these actions creates another possibility. People who never take chances rarely experience unexpected success, and that's not because they're cursed, but because probability just has far fewer opportunities to work its magic.
Actually, I want you to pause for just a second. What are the footprints of luck in your own life? Think about how many completely life-changing moments began with a tiny, seemingly insignificant decision. Saying yes to a random invitation, reading one specific book, sending one quick email to someone you admire, or just changing one small habit. Small actions almost always produce enormous consequences over time, but because we usually only see the final spectacular result, we just call it luck.
Part 4. The compound effect.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how deceptive it can be. We call this the illusion of sudden luck. It's where years of invisible, quiet preparation suddenly disguise themselves as a stroke of random overnight luck. Think about someone who gets offered an amazing, life-changing job right out of the blue. From the outside, everyone looks at them today and says, "Wow, what a lucky break." But what they didn't see were the thousands of tiny decisions made over the long haul, the years spent quietly building skills, the months spent awkwardly networking and making connections, the weeks spent helping others with zero expectation of anything in return. When the opportunity finally appeared, they were ready. Outsiders? Well, they just see the tip of the iceberg.
Now, obviously, we have to be grounded here. We have to acknowledge the very real difference between chance and choice. Genuine randomness definitely exists. No amount of positive thinking changes the fact that you can't control where you were born or natural disasters or totally unexpected accidents. Life contains uncontrollable chance. That's just a fact. But your real power, your actual leverage in this world, is how prepared you are when chance finally does appear. You can't control the timing of the opportunity, but you have absolute control over your baseline level of preparation.
Part 5. Engineer your serendipity.
So, the million-dollar question. Can you actually become luckier? Well, the science says yes, absolutely. And not by carrying around lucky charms or believing in magic, but by actively changing your behavior. Here is your blueprint to tilt the scales of probability in your favor. Step 1, meet more people. Just expand your surface area for chance encounters, right? Step 2, learn continuously. Build your skills way before you desperately need them. Step 3, take thoughtful, calculated risks. Step out of your comfort zone. And step 4, train your attention to notice opportunities over obstacles. Stay curious. The mathematical reality is that the more doors you consistently knock on, the more likely one of them eventually opens.
So the crucial point we're getting at is actually perfectly summarized by this quote from the Roman philosopher Seneca, written literally thousands of years ago. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Isn't it incredible how a piece of ancient wisdom so perfectly encapsulates the modern psychology and mathematics we've been exploring today? The preparation is entirely in your hands. As we wrap up our investigation today, I really want to challenge you. The next time you look at someone in your career, your relationships, or just your everyday life, and you hear them described as lucky, I want you to ask yourself this question. Are you really witnessing a spontaneous miracle, or are you just looking at the compounding, inevitable results of 1,000 good choices?
Because at the end of the day, the science shows us that luck isn't always something you just stumble across. Often it's something you purposefully build. Luck isn't something you wait for. It's something you prepare for. So, what are you preparing for today?